There were representatives of the Ministries of Justice and of Transport. Formal minutes were kept, and lists of Jews, country by country. In Poland, over 2 million. In Norway, 1,300. England, 330,000. Russia, 5 million. Grand total, over 11 million. Eichmann, with his experience in transportation, was appointed permanent administrator for this final solution of the Jewish problem. It had been decided that all the Jews in Europe were to be gassed. All occupied Europe had a concentration camp system based on the model camp Dachau. The camps were not only an instrument of terror, they were an important factor in war production, each with its cluster of labor camps attached. Now, they were also to be the means of the final solution. In the occupied East, new camps were specially built, and old ones equipped with new industrial capacity. They were to be machines to kill human beings by the million, utilize the byproducts, dispose of the waste. The camps were sited on railway routes to facilitate transportation. Eichmann chartered rolling stock from the state railways. The biggest camp of all was built astride the main railway line from Krakow to Vienna, in the outskirts of the Polish town of Auschwitz. In summer 1942, Himmler visited Auschwitz to inspect progress, to see for himself how things were getting on. Work was underway. Manufacturers' tenders had been called for, choices made. Plans and architects' drawings for the new combined gas chambers and crematoriums were ready for inspection, with their carefully designed chimneys and specially patented furnaces. Outside, construction workers, slave laborers, were striving to keep to their schedules in the warm summer weather. The gassing would be done with cans of poison pellets developed from a commercial pesticide, Zyklon B. The pellets were shaken through a roof grill. Exposed to the air, they gave off cyanide gas. In the occupied territories, the roundups began. In some countries, this is Holland, no stampede. The Jews gathered for resettlement in orderly fashion. The order of their going worked out by their own community leaders. Behind it all, the SS and the Gestapo. Jews everywhere were told, and they were ready to believe, they were being transported for resettlement. In the starving ghettos of the East, those who volunteered to go got bread. To escape starvation, they willingly paid railway fares for the journey. Bewildered, under armed guard, they walked to the station. The cattle trucks were waiting. There were soldiers on the platform. They climbed aboard.
The minute we got in, the minute they closed it on us with a bolt, terrible cries began inside. In Polish, Yiddish, German, pleading, requests. There's no air. We're suffocating, suffocating, suffocating.
Here suddenly you had a hell on wheels. And people suddenly stopped to be preoccupied, either with the past or with the future, but with surviving the journey.
The first to faint were children, women, old men and women. They all fell down like flies, exactly like flies. Father was standing next to me. All of a sudden, I see that he is falling. He has collapsed. I cried, "Father, Father."
Abba, Abba.
Then I found a piece of wood on the floor of the wagon. I got up and began to beat with the piece of wood. It was a club or something. I began to beat the people who were standing around me in the wagon, so that they would make room for Father, so that Father could get up. I remember that I didn't care about the suffering of others, their cries, their threats, only that Father should get up.
We had read the name of Auschwitz on the label on the trucks. In the trucks of wagons, trucks. But nobody of us knew what Auschwitz meant.
I could see 2 rows of barbed wire, which were obviously electrical. And well, I saw a row of people with carbines and a row of dogs, very disciplined dogs. And I was more amused than uneasy. I didn't think that they are going to shoot me because I couldn't see any reason for that.
The car was opened. They undid the bolt. The first moment it was opened, there was a sudden gust of air. It was good. We began to throw out the dead bodies. But all of a sudden, there were voices.
Juden, raus, raus, raus,
Raus, raus. Schnell, schnell, schnell. Quick, quick. Out, out, out.
I was afraid then, for the first time. You know why? There were flames until the sky and a strange smell. A smell I remember from home when my mother burns on Friday a chicken.
On the platform to greet them, an SS reception committee. New arrivals were divided into 2 columns. A quick medical inspection by the camp doctors. Those fit to work were put to one side. In the other column, all the rest. The old, the sick, the lame, pregnant mothers, women with children. Some suspect the worst. Most have no idea.
The idea for a mother being told after this terrible journey that her children are going to be gassed was an utter outrageous idea in her mind, because after all what she suffered, here comes a gangster who wants to increase her suffering. So she was tempted to go immediately to the next need officer and say that this man says, sir, that my children are going to be gassed. And he says, madam, do you think we are barbarians?
Those selected to be gassed were told they would be deloused in the showers before starting work. Then they would rejoin their families. They waited their turn, sometimes for hours.
Höblinger said to me, Richard, you're interested in the actions? I said, yes, very interested indeed. He said, I'll take you with me this evening.
The
new arrivals had to get undressed. And when a certain number had gone inside, they shut the doors. And that happened 3 times. And every time Höblinger had to go out to his ambulance and they took out a sort of tin. One of the SS Blockführers did that. And then he climbed up the ladder, and then at the top there was a round hole, and he opened a little iron door and held the tin there and shook it. And then he shut the little door again. Then a fearful screaming started up. Approximately, I would reckon, after about 10 minutes, it slowly went quiet. I said to Höblinger, can we get a bit nearer when they take them out? So we went a bit closer. They opened the door. That was the prisoner squad who did that. Then a blue haze came out. And I looked in, and I saw a pyramid. They'd all climbed on top of each other, until the last one stood on the very top, all one on top of the other. It was a pointed heap. It all came up to a point.
And
then the prisoners had to go in and tear it apart. They had to tug and pull very hard to disentangle all these people. Then we went back to the hall, and now it was the turn of the last lot to get undressed, the ones who'd managed to hang back a bit all the time. Then the prisoners had to check where small children had been hidden and covered up. They pulled them out and opened the doors quickly again, and whoosh, they threw all the children in and slammed the doors. Oh, I'm going to be sick, I said. Oh, my, I said, I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's absolutely terrible. And just imagine, when they threw the children in, how the people inside screamed, because then they suddenly realized what was happening. And I said, Carl, can we leave soon? I can't stand it anymore. And he said, you do get used to anything in time.
A few, the strong, the young, would work till they died. Some would die of exhaustion, some were beaten to death, some too weak to work another day were gassed in their turn. And prisoners had other uses, medical experiments. Some, their hearts broken, chose to die on the electrified wire. Outside that wire, SS men free to go home to their families at the end of the day's work.
And I remember when we passed 10,000 naked women in a frosty morning, already sorted out, you see, and put on the lorries. And they knew they were old prisoners already. And they knew that they are now going to the gas chamber. And they were quiet, and somehow people were accustomed to live with the moment, with the knowledge that the death will come. But when the motor started, you know, this noise, this created a panic between the women, and a terrible noise went up from those lorries, you see, the death cry of 1,000 young women, you know, who were already reduced to skeletons, and their futile attempts, which they knew by any logic that they can't succeed, to jump out from the lorries, which takes them to the gas chambers, which are only perhaps less than a mile away, and which were already stoked, and the fire was coming out from the chimneys. This means everything was prepared. You see, this was a moment when Moshe Zolnitsch, the rabbi's son, spoke to his God. God showed them your power. This is against you. And nothing happened. And then he said, there is no God.
We used to say, where is the whole world? Where is the United States? Where is Russia? Do they know what is happening here in the extermination camps at all?
Oh, there had, of course, been only too much evidence of persecution of the Jews before the war began in Hitlerite Germany. And then, as the war progressed, some horrifying reports began to come out. At first, it was very difficult naturally to assess their accuracy, and they were indeed so horrible that it's hard to believe they could be true.
Among the working prisoners, a resistance movement. They smuggled out photographs with a plea to the great powers for help.
The evidence was so extensive, one could hardly fail to give it credit. And we decided that one of the things we must do was to make a joint statement in each of our capitals at the same time, declaring what our information was and what this horror was that was being perpetrated, and also making plain our detestation of it, and our determination that those responsible for it should be punished when the war was over. And that we got agreement upon after some negotiation, and it was near the end of 1942 when I made this statement in the House of Commons, with I must say, a dramatic effect far exceeding anything that I'd expected. And the Speaker, a very fine